I'm McKinney Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Marina Billinghurst is an artist, fashion designer, and author. Her company, Art of Marina, marries art and fashion, breathing magic into the world. From her roots in the fashion industry, working with brands such as Joe Fresh, and as creative director at Caulfield Apparel Group, Marina transformed from corporate fashionista into slow fashion advocate with her own line of luxury dusters, scarves, and home decor. Inspired by the natural world and the magic within, shared experiences, and committed to ethical and sustainable practices, Marina's paintings inspire beauty, positivity, and connection to create a global butterfly effect of positive change. So please welcome to the show, Marina Billinghurst.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, McKinney. It's so wonderful to be back.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come back and to update us and to share your new gems and evolution with us. You know, we had you on, I think it was like the second year of the podcast. We're going into year 6, I believe.
Wow.
I think you were on episode 62.
Oh, okay.
And we talked about designing the life that you desire. And I am so honored to have been connected to you over the years and to watch you evolve and to see where God has brought you to today from where you were. And I'm going to try not to get too emotional. Before we even start.
Yeah.
But thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for creating such a beautiful space that we can open up and have these moments that are just part of our journey. And, you know, they all make sense. I always say, like, you can't figure stuff out. Everything happens for a reason. But in the moment, we're like, why did this happen? But it's later, it's 5 years later, it's 6 years, it's 10 years, it's a decade, it's the end of your life. You just, that's why. As long as you keep on going and using your mindset to stay positive. So I believe I'm here, and the things that happened are because I did choose to pivot from victim mentality to gratitude for all the things, even when they were really, really hard. And they're still hard. There's no easy way. And it's a daily practice. I catch myself when I'm like, oh man, this is so unfair. And then you're like, no, this is part of my journey. This is making me who I am. I'm a warrior. I'm strong. I can handle this. I can persevere, you know, and we get through. So yeah, when I came on your pod, like, what year was that? 20, I don't even know. 20, it was 2019 because it was pre-pandemic.
It was, let's see if I can remember. It was, it was 2019.
So I was like literally in the thick of it then. And that was when, like, if anyone listened to episode 62, I mean, I haven't even listened. I'm going to listen to it after today. I probably should have listened to it before. But yeah, no, that was like, I was I started my healing journey around then. 2018 December was when the
Mm-hmm.
accident happened, and I got into a massive car accident and I lost my twin pregnancy. And it was just like, what is happening? I just didn't understand. I was in completely different place, spiritually, mentally, physically, all the things. So I had just chosen then to like trust the universe, trust God, just believe that this was all meant to be for a reason. And it was hard. It went from the deep depths of despair to, okay, one step at a time, one day at a time. And, I think I was 36 at the time when I lost my pregnancy. And it was like the end of it for me because, I was already on a fertility journey of IVF, and like natural wasn't an option. My husband and me were madly in love, and even the sweet love that we were making was not making babies.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to go to that route. And then I finally had a healthy pregnancy, and boom, car accident, massive car accident. But I always look at it like there's a Marianne Williamson quote that I love, and it's, a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. And in that moment, it's the miracle is the mindset. The miracle is the belief. So I somehow survived that car accident. So I could have been like, oh, yeah, I lost my pregnancy and my life's over. Or I could be like, well, actually, I'm alive. So my life isn't
Yeah.
over. So what's the
Yeah.
lesson here? So the healing journey started. And then during the healing journey was a massive pandemic when the world just shut down. So like you can't control the weather or what's going on around you. You can only control how you face it and how you get through it. So I just found a spiritual healer and I started doing this healing, and it was a gateway for me to kind of dig into my soul and myself. So had I not been in that accident, don't know if I ever would have gone on this journey. I would have stayed in the corporate fashion industry in Toronto and climbed the corporate ladder, had babies, probably had a nanny, probably wouldn't have been present. Now I'm a different human, and I was gifted a child because of what I've been through. So, oh my gosh, I just jumped ahead. Let me rewind. So
Listen, no, I
gifted.
love,
Yeah,
listen, I love organic
gifted.
conversations. Keep going
Hmm.
because there's so much I want to unpack. Like, don't stop.
So, okay. So pandemic hits. I decide to pack up my life. I'm on this journey of healing. I miss my family. I miss my mom and my brother and my nieces, my sisters. And I decide to go back west to British Columbia. I left everything in Toronto behind and I started writing, which I'd never ever been a writer. I've always been an artist, designer by trade, but I started writing. And through my healing journey, I started doing these crazy meditations that were really, really hard for me to do at first. Like I was not able to meditate. You're talking high ADHD here. Like my meditations were like lying down with my eyes closed, creating a to-do list, but then also daydreaming about other things. That's not a meditation. So when I actually succumbed to like, let's really learn how to meditate, I started following these butterflies down paths like of my life. And it was so vivid because I'm a visual person. So my meditations were visual. So whatever the guided meditation was, the music and what have you, I would follow these butterflies because I'm a butterfly girl. It's a spirit animal for me. They're about transformation. And they would just lead me down these crazy journeys into my childhood, into my past. And I was uncovering not just the trauma from my car accident and the loss of my pregnancy, but I was uncovering stuff from kindergarten and elementary school and high school and college, and just like, whoa, my sisters, my parents, like traumas that I had faced that were just crazy. And I felt like, wow, okay, so I am become aware, consciously aware of what actually is preventing me from becoming who I want to be, because all those traumas were like weights in my body that I was storing and carrying with me. For example, jealousy, fear, when you can't be happy for somebody else, it's because you're holding on to something. When you're happy for other people, it's because you've let go, and you want other people to succeed when you've let go of the reason why you're stopping yourself from succeeding, right? So I had all of those things, and a lot of it was shame because of the mistakes I'd made and the traumas that happened to me. And then it was kind of rewriting the story of, is this my fault? No, the traumas that happened to you are not your fault. Even if you made a mistake, it's okay. Like, life's about evolution and learning and growing. So how would we learn if we didn't make mistakes? And if something terrible happens to us, which it does every day, how do we grow without blame for ourselves or for the person who hurt us? And that's the most powerful thing we can probably learn in our lives. And for me, it was game changing because I found out like lots of different traumas in one, just relationship with my father, who was an immigrant to Canada and looked at his children as investments, essentially. So how are they going to provide for me one day, kind of thing? And his mentality was second place is the first loser. And there was a lot of pressure for me to be the best. Like my dad always said to me, you have to be the best. And I was just like, and for him, it was probably he wanted me to be the best version of myself. But the way I kind of took it to heart was I have to be better than everybody else.
Right.
And that was so hard for a child because then I was competitive. But yet I'm this like loving, nurturing person who was competing because her father was watching and she couldn't fail because he came from nothing and gave her everything. So now she's indebted to her father, which is heavy stuff to carry your whole life. But, then I started to open that. And then I found out there was shame from stuff that happened to me as a young girl. Like there was sexual abuse that I didn't even ever tell a soul, not one soul. It wasn't until I actually started writing out the traumas and then painting butterflies to release them. Because as a creative, the meditations were amazing and they were like game changing, but there was no release for me until I actually took pen to paper or paintbrush and I just pushed something through me. So a lot of people are creative artists and they don't know because they haven't yet picked up the paintbrush because they're scared.
Right.
They're scared of not being a good artist or what society says you have to be in order to be an artist. But what it really is about is just the act of creating something that represents your movement of the energy you're pushing through your body. Bottom line.
Wow. Okay. So I have goosebumps.
I do too, actually.
There's so much that we can unpack there. I don't even know if we're going to have time to unpack it all, but I want to start at the beginning from everything that you said. You talked about how you were able to shift from the victim mentality to basically the victor mentality, using gratitude. And very often when we are in that low place, when we're in the dark place, we are not open to some of the easiest things that will help our healing journey. I can think of myself personally where I previously wasn't open to meditating and now I do it all the time. I wasn't open to nature walks and now I do it every day. So when we're in that place, we don't realize there are simple things that are super helpful and can have a compound positive effect on our life if we are able to open ourselves up to those things. My mentor used to say, a closed mind can't accept new ideas, right? So something that, I guess to me is as simple as gratitude, how that was able to shift how you view life, your perspective of life. I want the listeners to really dissect that because we don't realize how much our feelings are affecting our environment, how our feelings are affecting the results that we're getting in life. It's like, if we're constantly holding on to anger, we are more susceptible to be, pessimistic and to have these negative views of the world, other people, and ourselves. So we create these results that are negative. But if we are able to have a simple tweak of our, I guess, perspective of how we interact in the world, how we show up in the world, how we show up for ourselves, how that can completely shift the results that we get. Like every single day, we have these thoughts. We use our mind to visualize all these things, especially, I struggle with anxiety. So my mind can go rampant about all the things that can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And how often, like the percentage, how often does that actually happen? So all the time and energy that's invested into looking at all the things that could go wrong. And when it does go wrong, it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy because we've created that vision. We've attracted that energy. But if we intentionally use our imagination and our thoughts and our feelings to create the life that we do want, like the first episode that you came on, the title of it was Designing the Life That You Desire, right?
Totally. Amazing.
So I think it's important for us to really pay attention to the fact that we can create the life that we desire with our thoughts, our feelings, our actions. And sometimes our thoughts and feelings, if we're not intentional about them, can actually create more chaos and more discomfort and more negative than we would like if we're not intentional with it. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's chaos. It can go all over the place, right? If we're not intentional. 100%.
Yes. And then, you were talking about how the accident, that low point, being in a really bad car accident and losing the twins. It's like when bad things happen, it's very easy for us to sit in a space of like, oh my God, why me? The what's the word I'm looking for right now?
Victim mentality.
I don't want to the victim mentality, but at the same time, yes, you are a victim, but we don't have to consume or become full-time the victim. Like we're allowed to feel, in that moment. Yes, you're allowed to be the victim, but then processing it to go through it, right? But that breakdown brings us to our breakthrough. Like anyone that I've ever spoken to that has had an extremely low point in life that is now thriving or living in harmony with how they would love their life to be, it came from an extremely low point that they didn't feel they could get back up from. For myself, that was when my sister passed away. For you, that was the accident and losing the twins. But today, since then, as we have been on our healing journey, we have been openly sharing our journey. We have been helping other people heal. It creates community in our transparency about our journey, the vulnerability, which is why I appreciate, you coming back on to share where things are today. Because, when we spoke on the phone the other day, I was like in tears, even when we came off the phone, because I was thinking to myself, you had this traumatic experience. And going through the pandemic, we were both at the same time dealing with a lot of struggles in life. My daughter almost didn't live, and then you were dealing with your stuff. And it's like, okay, here we are today where you now have a baby that is around the same age as my grandchild. My daughter had a baby, like
That's
life.
Crazy.
The beauty of life, that the blessing of life that has come through the healing process.
Absolutely. Well, Oh, you said so many things. Where to even start? My first gut instinct is like your granddaughter and my daughter. Like we're pretty much the same age, right? So
Mhm.
that's the miracle of life. And
Mm.
I think after that accident, the first thing I like really held on to was how life in general is a miracle. And I know that your granddaughter's named Miracle. And I actually thought about naming my daughter Miracle because she's a miracle. But
Yes.
the thing about why I'm focusing on that word is because as soon as we look in the mirror, look around us, and realize that our existence is divine power of God's creation, of the fact that we are alive is a miracle, um, we will appreciate our time here and shake off all the stuff because it's not a long time and it can be whatever we make it. But the fact that we're alive, it means that we are meant to be here and we are chosen to be here. My granddaughter, your granddaughter and my daughter were meant to be here. And
Yes.
it's like, we can't force those things. We can just appreciate, love those things and have all that gratitude for this time here, because now I'm like, my mindset is in a different place because after I went on my healing journey, I wrote a book
Hmm.
about the trauma that I went through, and it's randomly called The Nine Magical Butterflies. It sounds like a children's book, but I wrote this book because I thought to myself, I wish I knew my grandmother's story. I wish I knew my
Hmm.
mother's story.
Mm.
But I also didn't, I knew my second chance at life because I was like this hair away from being totaled in a car. I knew that with my second chance at life, I realized if I had left the planet and the universe that day, no one would really know all those things that I buried. So
Mm.
now they're free. They're out there. They don't define me. They're just part of my story. I'm already on to the new chapters and the new adversities and the new struggles.
Mm.
But at the same time, I honor what I had gone through. And because I got through them, I was gifted my child. So nine
Hmm.
months after I published my book, I found out I was pregnant at 42 years old.
Wow.
So it's just,
Wow.
it's crazy. Like, and I tell everybody now, like, if you have an interest to like leave your story in the world, you don't even have to like publish a book and be like an author and market it and all that stuff. I don't even do that. I wrote it and it's there, but it's for my daughter. It's for my
Yes.
daughter. It's for my ancestors, and it's for my
Legacy.
grandmother. Yeah, it's legacy. And
Mm.
then of course you started your legacy leavers company. It's just all crazy, like how the universe works,
It's
because that's all
alignment.
we have. And it's alignment,
Yes.
yeah. But it's like there's no point in trying to wonder these things. Like we're alive, we have the tools. Like tell your story. Tell your story, because it's
Hmm.
also like the fact that I healed myself from the sexual um pain I went through as a child that I didn't even understand. And I still don't even know what happened, but I know that it happened. Like I think as a child, you have a way of blocking things out, but you know that it happened. So that's,
Compartmentalize in order to
yeah.
get through.
But it was there. And so that led to all kinds of other traumas. And one of the most craziest things is that I went into the next grade of elementary school after the horrible thing happened to me. And I knew that it happened to me. And I had a new best friend who was this most amazing, beautiful girl. And we were just the best of friends. But there were moments when I was really mean to her. And I
Mm.
didn't know at the time. Like we talked later in life. But I knew, because I knew that in my deepest heart that these bad things had happened to me and they didn't happen to
Mhm.
her. And no, she didn't
Right.
know. I didn't even know. But it made me push her away, and it made
Right.
me. So we talked about it after I published the book. I sent her a copy and I told her what happened to me. And I said, I'm so sorry that when we were in elementary school that I wasn't ever mean to you, because you were my favorite person and I love you so much. But this is what actually was going on in my 8-year-old head. Can you imagine? And she like cried her eyes out, and we had this beautiful moment. And, so it's never too late to heal and grow and connect and just go forward and let go of these things. But facing them is when the healing and the magic starts. So you can't bury it forever. So in whatever capacity that is, I'm so grateful that I went through what I went through, because now I'm free of that pain that was hiding in my body. And I think that's what causes all the bad shit in the world is bad shit.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So first off, I am so sorry that you even had to experience that, period. I wonder, only because it's sad, like the high percentage of women that I know that have experienced sexual abuse, the even higher percentage of women that I know that have experienced abuse, period, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, what have you. But a couple of things. I don't know if there's any studies around it, but what I have noticed is that the women that have been sexually abused have infertility issues. And I wonder if there's a connection, right? Yeah. I can't remember if it was Dr. Susan Cain, or there's another book that I read by a doctor, but she was talking about a point in her life where her memories of being sexually abused by her father had, I guess, appeared later in life after I think she had surgery or something, because she couldn't figure out where like pain in her stomach was coming from. And the memory started to come back to her, and she remembered. And she had heavily suppressed those memories because her father was a spiritual figure, a very big spiritual figure. So when she started to speak on it, she was outcasted from the family, the spiritual community, all of that. But she felt also that it was connected to her infertility issues. And I know too many women that still cannot have children and have not publicly shared, but have experienced sexual abuse. I'm just wondering if there's any studies linked to that.
I'm wondering that too. And that's something I didn't even look into. But the crazy part is I didn't even know, it wasn't even in my realm that it was at all affecting me, because it was buried so deep. And when I'd finished writing my book, I had left it out. The chapter was there, but I had left out the words of what I was trying to say. And and I went back and I just started writing what had happened and like what I remember. And I was like on the floor of my office having an exorcism, because I'd never written it down that I could rewrite it. Like it was so buried so deeply. And then when I read it out loud, I cried and like called my mother, and she's like, "What is wrong?" And I'm like, "I have to tell you something." And she was so scared, like, what's going on? And then when I told her, she like cried too. And she's like, "I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me right away?" And I'm like, I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed. I mean, there's so many complications there. Like we went to Catholic school, and this is way back in the day. So can you imagine going to Catholic school when I as a child would go to church where they would tell me about sinning and like all this stuff. And then here I am thinking that I sinned, but I didn't do anything. I was a victim.
Right.
So you're just so confused as a child, and there's no counsel. There was no counseling available. There was just a priest that we had to confess to. And I didn't understand how to confess something of that matter. So, there was just no way to like explain myself. So, or grow. I didn't have access to it. So now as a mother, I go to therapy like pretty much twice a month since the accident. It was weekly. Now it's monthly. But it's all about communicating and explaining ourselves, and no more burying anything. And I want my daughter to read my book as soon as she can read, and then we can talk about it. So she never has to hide anything from me. And, my mom wasn't always available because she had 4 children and she was busy, and, life was complicated. So it's really about having an open communication and nothing being off limits, and being able to talk about the hard things that our ancestors, like, they weren't, the women of our past weren't allowed to talk about those things ever. Never, never.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Everything is hush hush.
hush,
Like you
hush.
said, we don't know our mother's deep stories or our grandmother's deep stories. And I find, especially with first generation Canadians or first generation Americans, the huge pressure that comes from our parents in terms of who or what we should be, but also there's a lot that we have to figure out on our own because they haven't shared their story. There's no blueprint for us. There's no conversation for us. There's no transparency, that we have now. Like you, I'm an avid therapy goer. I've been going to therapy every week, and I interviewed another therapist on the podcast the other day, and she's like, "You go to therapy every week? That is intense. That's like going to the gym every day." I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of healing to do.
Yeah.
But when you talked about writing that chapter in your book and the release of it, I can relate, because when I wrote the chapter in my book about losing my sister, so that was the last chapter in my book that I was able to physically get out. Every time I sat down to write that chapter, I had a meltdown. So I was like, okay, let me just finish the rest of the book and come back to it. But it was so cathartic. It was so healing to be able to get it out. So like you said, if someone's listening, even if you never, publish it publicly, but it's a form of release. It's like journaling. That's why they say journaling is helpful, for our emotions, because we're releasing them. The book, The Emotion Code, where we talk about trapped emotions. Like, I was someone who used to be a complete skeptic about anything that wasn't tangible, that I couldn't see. And I did a session with a woman who was a trained practitioner, with the whole emotion code. And this was during the pandemic, so it was via Zoom, so she didn't touch me. And she was able to release trapped emotions within. I didn't tell her a word about my history or my childhood. She released trapped emotions. She labeled and told me what the emotions were and what time of my life they came from, including while I was in the womb of my mother. And it was mind-blowing to me. But I no longer have the pain in my shoulder or my ankle because those trapped emotions had been released. So when you talk about not realizing how deep, those emotions may have been buried, we all have trapped emotions within us that need to be released. And whatever way that we can release them, whether that's telling our story or writing it out or journaling or whatever it is, but being able to first, like you mentioned, the awareness, the coming to the awareness that you have these childhood wounds or childhood traumas to address, and then intentionally taking the action to heal those things, to heal the inner child, to heal, the wounded empath, all those things. It can completely transform how you operate for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. So I have goosebumps because I'm also a practitioner of the emotion code.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that about you. So, girl, we are like so aligned. Excuse me. That's crazy. I did my first few sessions when I was in Toronto with a guy in Vancouver who's insane. He's been doing it forever and he's so good. But my mom introduced me to it. And then we have a friend here who does the most amazing massages. And my mom brought it up to her. She ended up taking the program. And so now I get insane massages with emotion code. So I'll be like, I have this pain in my wrist. And then she'll be like, okay. And then she'll do the emotion code and it'll be like, trauma with your sister when you were 30. Like, what happened? And like, no joke, the pain goes away when you fix it.
Yes.
And it's like, why can't this be more normal? Like, why is all these commercials that are like, take this drug and you might go blind and you'll never have sex again, but it's okay. I
It's
know.
about me.
I know. And then you have somebody with their own soul, like help you with trapped emotion. That's a real thing. And you are free, and it's woo woo or whatever, like, I don't know. I'm up for it. I believe that,
Listen,
that
I think there's a disconnect between science and spirituality, and that's why I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, because he combines the
hmm
two. But for
hmm
so long, science has dismissed the spiritual world because it's not tangible. But he is able to show things tangibly on how energy and spirit affect our health. Like in training with Bob Proctor, we talk about how our thoughts affect our feelings, how our feelings affect our body physically. And when we're out of alignment, it's a body that's in dis-ease, which is disease, right? So all these ailments that we
mm,
have brought on through stress, through all of these negative emotions that are trapped within us. So our body is out of alignment. But instead of the medical system saying, okay, how do we realign you with self? It's here's a band-aid, here's some medication that we're going to make money off of, but it's going to cause another problem over here. Or here's a temporary
hmm
fix for this. So I'm not a huge fan anymore of the medical system because of my own health issues and losing my sister and them not
Yeah.
diagnosing with my daughter and all these other things.
Yeah.
But paying attention to how our feelings and our mental health affect our physical health. Because I used to, so in 2006, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I feel like they diagnose that to everyone where they can't physically find something wrong and they're in pain. And
Mm,
anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's like it's chronic muscle pain. But they say that the symptoms include anxiety, depression, all these things. But once I got to studying for myself and understanding neuroscience and all these things and realizing, I think you guys kind of have it backwards. It's the depression and anxiety that's causing the body pain because your body is holding on to all of that tension, all of that stress. It's causing issues within the body. And the reason you can't see them on all of your medical tests is because it's coming from what's happening mentally and emotionally.
hmm
So ever since I learned that, learning to handle the anxiety and depression before it overflows and I'm overwhelmed, I don't have any fibromyalgia flare ups anymore. So it's like when we look at these things intentionally and connect them, but it's like these two worlds are like, yeah, no, I don't believe in this. So I'm not going to look at what you're doing. And I don't believe in this. And I'm not going to look at what you're doing. But if they
hmm
came together, they would see how they can actually benefit the world.
Absolutely. Hands down. I know, it's like, why can't we all just work together to make the world a better place? Because there's still greed and unhealed, powerful people at the end of the
Mhm.
day. And
Yeah.
it's like we all have to walk our walk and just focus on ourselves. And if we make ourselves better, that's the best thing we could possibly do. But it's hard to
Absolutely.
not be distracted by the idiocracy that goes on in the world.
Yeah.
But we can't change it. We can only change ourselves. And it's hard. It's hard to change yourself when every direction is pointing at you to go in the wrong direction every single day.
Hmm.
Um, but when you go on that journey because of a greater power in your soul, a purpose, and a reason, like my daughter, she's given me a whole new reason. Like the
Yeah.
accident made me change my life into designing the life I want to live. So I started my entrepreneurship, and I created beautiful sustainable garment kimonos that make every single woman, no matter your size, no matter your skin color, you fit my kimonos,
Yeah.
and they make you feel
Yeah.
beautiful. And they're made from
Yeah.
beautiful fabrics, silk and modal, like nothing better than that. And I was sick and tired of being told what to design by men for women in the fashion industry. So my accident was like, okay, I almost died. I don't want to spend my whole life working for the man when he's
Hmm.
telling me yes or no about what women should wear. So I said, I'm going to make something that fits everybody. That's a one size and it's comfortable. And I focused on that. That was my passion. And then it led to more control, more freedom, more time with my partner, more connecting with other people who are on that same equilibrium of like being a creator, being a maker. When you work for the man, yes, the security's there. And trust me, I had the paycheck and it was fantastic. And it is scary sometimes with entrepreneurship, especially during a pandemic and during a recession, and we're going through it all. But it's when you see past the money and you see about the presence and what your time and energy is being spent doing, you're richer already. You're richer already. You're not in the grind. You're not in that office environment where you are actually really unhappy, but you're doing it for the money. So it's like, what are you trading your time for? Because time is the most beautiful, most powerful commodity we have. So you can have a great job and spend tons of money on stuff you don't want to impress people you don't even like, blah, blah, blah. We know the story. Or you can have less and be with amazing people who fill your cup and support you. And when you said community in the beginning of this call, that is sort of the journey that has taken place since I got pregnant. When I had a soul in my uterus that was growing, I realized I had toxic relationships in my life and I didn't want to let that energy in. And so sometimes nature has a funny way of breaking what doesn't bend, if you hear me. Like it was time to move on so that I could protect myself and my child. So those changes happened and now I have boundaries. I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Same.
And right. So it feels so good to like, if you don't like what I'm doing, cool. You do you.
Yeah.
I'm good. And, having the people in your life that actually do lift you up. And I love Brene Brown and I love Atlas of the Heart. And I've told so many people to read it and they're like, blah, 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 like whatever. But I'm like, no, it's really like a cool encyclopedia for how traumatized and broken we all are. And if you actually read it, you're going to want to really have a good community because people who love you aren't going to blow out your candle or doubt you when you share good news. Nothing's worse than, oh my gosh, I have this thing. And then someone's like, yeah, whatever, you said that last time. It's like, okay, bye-bye. We're done.
Yeah.
So it's the boundaries and the keeping the candle lit. And I have the best my girlfriends that I have right now are my people. And it's like when they succeed, I'm like, woo! Like I am freaking screaming at the top of the mountain and I'm there to support them if they need art or design in any way. Like I'm there for my girls and I'm there to lift them up and do whatever I can. And they do the same for me and for my family and for my daughter. And it's easy and it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So community is key. And, our tribe is what the most important thing we have. Not the money, not the car, not the things. It's the people and the food and the nourishment and the taking care of ourselves and the emotion code. And, like when you clear out your closet of the clothes that you don't love anymore, you got to clear out the pain in your body and the people that are putting it there.
Yes. Well, you said so much. So much.
Yeah, right. There's a lot. There's always a lot with you and I. Episode 3 coming out in 6 years. Stay tuned.
I absolutely love everything that you said. There was a couple of things that I wanted to highlight before we go, just to make sure that the listeners are really paying attention. Like the community piece and the importance of your community. Like, I said earlier, the importance of how we feel, affects our environment, but also community is a very strong pillar in our resilience and survival. We are wired for connection. With isolation, we could die. So with the pandemic forcing isolation and impacting everyone's mental health, right now, what we need most is community. We need the healthy communities. We need the spaces where we feel safe to be both celebrated and when we are down to be supported. Um, I feel like people will often only focus on the circles where they have one. Maybe it's just, the support for when they're down, but those are not the people that are celebrating with them. Or the other, they have the group of people that are going to cheer for them when they, have a successful milestone, but then they don't have anywhere to go to when they're down. We need our inner circle, the circle we choose, the family we choose, to include people that are there for us, both to cheer and to support, and that we can do the same for. Because, like you said, it's not about the material things. Like, there's actually two book. I don't know. I feel like I've become what do you call it? A book junk. I used to be someone who couldn't read a book a year. And now I'm going through like 24 books a year. But my next two books that I'm trying to get to, that I have on my bookshelf right now, is one, Robin Sharma, his latest book, I think it's called like The Wealth Money Can't Buy. And then there's another one by Stephanie, and I'm going to kick myself for not remembering her last name right now, but she's coming on the podcast next week. But her book is called The New Happy, and it just came out.
Oh, I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah. Like, the old happy is about success and accolades and all those things, but the new happy is definitely about what brings us peace and freedom and love and connection. It's like, the old way of living where those of us who are first generation, North Americans, where, your parents, their focus was the success, all those things. But we have realized, this generation, many of us have realized, like, the real happiness is in our healthy connections. It's in our safe spaces. It's in us feeling at peace. It's in all of those places. And I love how you spoke earlier about healing through your art. And I was kind of laughing to myself when you talked about the meditation piece and ADHD. It's like everyone in my house is on the spectrum somewhere. So I understand with ADHD, how our mind can race with so many different thoughts and bring us to so many different places. But what has helped me with meditation, and the reason why I can now embrace it, is because I used to think I was doing it wrong because I couldn't be still and not let my mind wander. And I thought, okay, I'm doing this wrong. And learning now that it's actually helping me because it's forcing me to feel. It's not just about forcing you to feel calm, but it's forcing me to feel, because there's so many layers of life happening, especially, with all the different titles, mom, grandma, partner, blah, blah, blah. There's distractions everywhere, right? So when you have the chance to sit and be still and pay attention to your thoughts, yes, there's going to be thoughts coming in. There's going to be layers of things that we are thinking and feeling, but it's not doing it wrong. We're actually taking the time to feel. We are giving ourselves the space to feel without all the distractions.
That's so profound, because it really is about feeling. I have this saying I do every time I'm in such pain for something, whether it's like I'm stressed in traffic or I found out news I didn't want to hear. I just have to take a minute before I react, before I respond, before you write the email. And I always say, just let it hurt. Just let it hurt. Like, breathe, however long it takes. Sometimes it's an hour. I'll just sit there and like lie through the pain and then just let it go. So just let it hurt, let it go. Like, I do that all the time because it is mindset. It's mind control. So as you're saying, like, we can lose control. We've been talking about this since the beginning of the conversation. It's about, how do we have control over all the things in our life? It's by how we react to them. How do we organize our life and all of the titles that we have? So it's not a one and done. It's setting yourself up so that you're prepared for whatever life throws at you by being mentally, physically, spiritually fit, so that people can't steal your peace all day. those are the exhausted people who come home like, oh, why me? Why me? Why me? It's like, you got to go to the spirit gym, girl, and you got to work on
Yeah.
your meditation.
Yeah.
Because I used to do like, oh my God. So I'd come home to my husband, like, guess what happened? Like this guy. And he'd be like, cool. I'm like, did anything happen to you? He's like, not really. And I'm like, why are you so cool? Like, how come you're not affected by it? But after a few years in corporate, you just get over it and you move on. And then I took that with me outside. You don't have to react to every little situation. It's energy. Save it. Save it for your passion projects and for your stories and use that energy to lift people up rather than tear them down. It's easy to,
Yeah.
I always say it's easy to be an asshole. Being an
Yeah.
asshole is the easy way out. It's
Yeah.
hard to be good, but it's
Yeah.
worth it. Choose your heart,
Ugh.
you know?
You are speaking to my soul right now. I just had this conversation with my therapist 2 days ago because so I have been on this journey where I was like, okay, after working through my history of toxic relationships and all these things, I'm like, okay, I know how to set boundaries now. I'm great at this.
Yeah.
But I struggle to set boundaries with my children because I'm like, no, I need to give them everything and they should have everything, and realizing I'm creating entitled monsters. So now that I am so now that I am learning to set boundaries with my adult children, I feel like crap. And every week I'm strengthening that muscle in therapy, coming home with action steps, things I need to implement, things I need to change. And I'm doing it constantly. And I was just like, being a good person is so hard. Like, I think it would just be easier for me to not care and just do whatever. Like, it's exhausting trying to do all of the right things. And I'm like, this is why there's so many bad people out there. It's just easier.
I think it's like that you're the 1% if you're a good person and you actually do good and like not let it steal your peace. Like, think like a monk. I do love Jay Shetty for that. Like, it's powerful shit, man. And look what he's done with it. Like, come on. So, but once you get to the good, I think life's just a fun ride.
Yeah.
It's getting there. It's the hard part. But once it's done and you're there. Yeah. And then, but it's like, we have so much to clean up. We have ancestral trauma. We have all the crap that generational, all the stuff that's thrown at us. And it's just a matter of finding our groove, learning how to be good, having faith, and putting your energy where brings you the most joy at the end of the day. And all that stuff you said is so magical. And I just love our chats. And I can't even believe how aligned we are. Like, it's crazy. But when we first met, it was like, boom, fireworks. So miss you, and I want to be closer to you. Gosh, I feel like I need to move back to Toronto just so I can see you more.
But I'm planning a visit to Vancouver, so we're going to see each other very, very soon.
Yeah, we are.
I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, but, you know what? I was going to say one thing. I was going to say about the art, because you brought it up, and like where I am now. So after I wrote my book, I created a program where it's like it's called a butterfly painting ceremony. So essentially, if you're in that realm of healing and creation and want to discover, I'm putting out an online course soon. I'm just working on it now. It might take 6 months. I don't know. But it's basically like a program where you can actually paint your trauma out of you. And then you have a butterfly, a representational. Do I have one here? Because I paint them all the time. I do. So you can paint a butterfly. Just to basically just as a release. And then whatever that butterfly is, whether it's, you had a fight with a friend and you want this butterfly to represent the love that you have for them and to grow. It's like, how do we get to that equilibrium of like peace? By creating reminders and doing acts of joy that create love from pain. So these butterflies are representational, but I'm creating like a 9-step program, which are the 9 butterflies I painted from my book that allowed me to have a baby. So there's some magic in there.
Absolutely.
And that's where I am now. I'm more about the service-based work, and I'm not pushing product. I do have my kimonos and I do have my art, but I'm in it now to like teach and show people how they can use art to heal. I feel like that's my new purpose and the new walk that I'm walking. And it feels really like I do events and then I teach the workshops, and I'm seeing miracles happen with women. Like one lady, her arm was like damaged from something she's going through. She probably needs a motion code. So I said, why don't you try with your left hand, just to show people that it's not about artistic talent. It's about the energy. She painted the best butterfly that day and had tears on her face. And I said, hey, like, it's not about like, oh, I'm such a good artist. It's about creating art.
Expression of creativity.
Yeah. So that's
we were
it
created,
for me.
Created in God's image, girl. You're on the right path. I love it.
I feel it. It's taken a while to get here, but I'm feeling more zen than ever.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. I would love if you could tell the listeners where they could stay connected with you, where they can learn more from you and about you.
So my name is Marina Billinghurst. My Instagram is Art of Marina. It's pretty much a hub of all the things I do, from my speaking events to my book to my digital art and then my watercolor passion project. So yeah, Instagram's the best, but it's also artofmarina.com.
Love it. Thank you so much. I will definitely have all of the details where they can connect with you in the details section so they don't have to search too far.
Oh, thanks so much, Makini. I just love you so much. You're such a gift to the universe and grateful for all that you provide with your beautiful podcast and just your natural, nurturing love that you give.
Thank you. I have been blessed to know you, honestly. Aww. From the moment we've connected through Instagram to where we are today. I feel honored to be connected to you. The fact that we are so aligned with so many things. I feel honored that I get to watch your journey as you are going through your healing journey and evolving and the healing spaces that you are creating. It's the beauty in having connections that are aligned with you. It's like, yeah, we're both healers, but in different ways through different modalities, right? Mm-hmm. So, I can celebrate you and share your work and share what you're doing and feel like there's nothing being taken away from me. There's enough blessings to go around. God does not run out of blessings. No. So I am just honored. And I can't wait to watch your daughter grow. Like, such a blessing. I
love watching your children grow. They're big, people now with having babies. Like, I don't even know what's going on, but they're beautiful. And now you're the most gorgeous grandmother ever. So, yay! Aw.
Thank you so much, Marina.
Thanks, Makini.
To all of you listeners out there, I would love if you could screenshot this week's episode and share your aha moments. Share what parts of Marina's story resonated with you. Share what your takeaways were. You can tag Marina at Art of Marina. You can tag myself at The Real Makini Smith. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.